All right, in this explainer, we're going to dive deep into just one chapter of the Bible, Luke chapter 7. We're going to unpack 4 really dramatic, totally unexpected encounters that reveal this powerful, world-changing theme of grace, faith, and what it really means to be forgiven.
So let's get right to the big idea here. The events you're about to see in this chapter, they aren't just a random collection of miracles. No, they're what we are calling Jubilee interruptions. It's Jesus deliberately breaking into these moments of sickness, death, doubt, and judgment to introduce a radical new reality.
So here's how we're going to break this down. We're going to walk through 6 parts, following these 4 key stories that just keep building on each other. And it all leads to this powerful climax at a dinner party. And believe it or not, a direct invitation for you and me today.
Okay, before we jump into the stories themselves, we need to get 2 key concepts straight in our heads. Think of these as the engine driving everything Jesus says and does in this chapter.
First up is this incredible idea of Jubilee. Now, as you can see, this is an ancient concept of total release, debts canceled, slaves freed. Well, Jesus comes on the scene and basically announces his whole mission is to bring about the ultimate spiritual Jubilee. He's here to release the captives and restore people to God.
And this second idea is this fantastic metaphor of new wine. Jesus' graceful teaching, his whole way of being, is like this powerful, expansive new wine, and it just can't be contained by old, rigid religious structures, those old wineskins. It demands new ways of thinking, new ways of living. So keep those 2 ideas, Jubilee and new wine, in your mind as we go.
All right, let's get to our first story. And it kicks off with an absolutely astonishing act of faith from a total outsider, a Roman military officer, literally part of the occupying army.
So the centurion sends a message with this profound request. Get this, he understands authority so well that he believes Jesus doesn't even need to show up. He basically says, look, just say the word. That's all it'll take. His faith is in the sheer power of Jesus' word alone.
And this is where we see this fascinating contrast, right? The centurion, a Gentile, an outsider, shows this deep humility and faith in spiritual authority. On the other hand, you had a lot of religious insiders who were kind of relying on their status, their pedigree, and often demanding physical proof. He didn't need any of that.
And this is huge. It's one of only 2 times in the Gospels where the text actually says Jesus marveled, that he was amazed. And what amazed him? This incredible, boundary-breaking faith from someone that, let's be honest, everyone else would have seen as the enemy.
Okay, so from a moment of incredible faith, the stakes get raised a lot. In the second story, Jesus doesn't just confront sickness. He walks directly into a funeral procession to confront death itself.
Now here's what's so powerful. Unlike the centurion, this woman didn't even ask for help. She was past the point of asking. She had lost her husband and now her only son, which meant her future was, frankly, over, total destitution. But Jesus sees her, is filled with compassion, and he's the one who initiates the interruption.
And with that simple command, young man, I say to you, arise, Jesus just shatters the finality of death. You know, he's not just restoring a life here. He's restoring this woman's entire future, her family, her security, her dignity. This right here, this is Jubilee in action.
And the crowd's reaction? It goes from sheer terror to praise. This is the sound of an old wineskin, that old way of thinking, of just accepting death and despair, cracking wide open to make way for a new wineskin of awe and belief in God's power.
So, after these 2 mind-blowing miracles, the narrative takes a really interesting turn. We get this moment of profound and very human doubt, and it's coming from the last person you'd ever expect. John the Baptist, Jesus' own cousin.
Now you gotta remember, John is in a prison cell, probably facing his own death. He sends his followers to ask this question. See, he expected a Messiah who would bring fire and brimstone and overthrow the Romans. Not this guy who healed the sick and ate dinner with sinners. His rigid expectation, his old wineskin, was bursting at the seams.
You know, I just love this part. Instead of a simple yes, Jesus just points to his actions. He tells them, go tell John what you see. And look at this list. Every single one of these things is a direct callback to the prophet Isaiah's description of the coming Jubilee. Jesus confirms who he is, not with an argument, but with the undeniable evidence of restored lives.
Okay, let's get to the chapter's climax, which all goes down at a dinner party. And here,
Two completely opposite worldviews collide in this powerful, unforgettable scene.
This scene just lays out the contrast we've been talking about so perfectly. You've got Simon the Pharisee, our host, who is the perfect picture of that old, rigid wineskin of religious judgment. He looks at this woman and all he can see is a sinner. But she is the new, flexible wineskin, literally overflowing with gratitude because she doesn't just see a teacher, she sees a savior.
Here's an incredible insight from our source material that just brings this whole scene to life. A participant named Kybra pointed out that the very perfume this woman used was probably the tool of her trade. So, by pouring it all on Jesus' feet, she was symbolically pouring out her entire old life in this act of total, beautiful surrender.
And this is the crucial point, we can't miss this. Her extravagant, just reckless worship wasn't her trying to earn forgiveness. It was the natural, explosive eruption of a heart that had already received it. Great forgiveness just creates the greatest love.
So you see, this chapter isn't just a historical record. It's a living, breathing invitation for every single one of us to reorient our own hearts and actually participate in this Jubilee release.
These 4 encounters challenge us to move from just being observers to being active participants. We're called to come to Jesus with that same humble faith, to interrupt despair with real hope, to anchor our own hearts in what God has done when we doubt, and, maybe most importantly, to let the grace we receive totally shatter our tendency to judge other people.
And that leaves us with a final, heart-reorienting question to think about. In my life, in your life, which wineskin are we choosing today? Is it the brittle, judgmental silence of Simon? Or is it the flexible, overflowing, grateful worship of the woman who met Jesus and was just never the same?